At night, adults can go out on the town on an island playground just for them. Pleasure Island.
We'll be finished in just a minute.
Hey! What's that? Hey! What are you guys still doing here? You were supposed to be at a show.
I'm working.
Now.
WDW Radio, your information station.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I am your host, Lou Mongello, and this is show number 625, and together each week we're going to celebrate the magic of the Disney parks, movies, and more as I take you from the parks to the screens and everything in between here on the podcast, my weekly live video on Facebook every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, community, books, audio tours, blog, and more. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and find everything else at WDWRadio.com. So I'm going to answer more of your questions from the inbox this week, including the history of Tinkerbell's magic Cinderella Castle flight, the great movie ride, what could have been, the Spaceship Earth mystery finally solved, Kyber Crystals, the legend, myth, and reality of Dark Kingdom and the villains attraction land, or fifth park that almost was. I'll then have the answer to our last Walt Disney World trivia question of the week and pose a new challenge for your chance to win a Disney Prize package. Then stay tuned to the end of the show for more information, updates, details about our Marvel Day at Sea cruise, your voicemails, and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show. It's time to open up the email inbox once again and answer your questions to help you plan, prepare, and just answer any or all of your pressing questions about where to go, what to do, where to eat, of course, and the how, why, where, and when about what's new, what's next, or even fun facts about Disney history, details, trivia, and really anything that you like. And joining me once again as I open up the inbox is, she's not the Scarlet Witch or even the Sea Witch. She's somebody who still doesn't wait for the end credit scene in Marvel movies. She is, of course, it was Becky Mankin all along, and she loves little children too. Becky Mankin, Chief Princess Creative Officer from MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, welcome back.
Why didn't I see that coming? Why wasn't I all prepared for something ready, witchy for you, just to make you feel so much more comfortable in the space you're sitting in?
How could we not be mentally in the... Listen, are you still thinking about the ship of Theseus? You know, is it still the same ship? Question?
Seriously,
or Washington Axe? Or whatever?
I am still trying to process everything that I saw. I stayed up till midnight because here's the benefit of being on the West Coast. It dropped at 12:01. So I got to watch it at midnight, and I sat there with my jaw on the floor because clearly none of my predictions came true.
Wait, this is a spoiler-free...
I am not going to say what my predictions were. I'm just going to own it right now that none of my predictions came true. That's all I'm saying.
No matter what, WandaVision has been a lot of fun, and it getting people thinking and talking, I think, in ways that we haven't done since Lost, and probably nobody has Googled the name Theseus as much as they have been in the past week.
Right. I will admit, when I heard that, I was like, I'm going to need to do a little more research on that one, I can tell, because...
So if you're listening and aren't sure, we're talking about the
no spoilers.
It's not a spoiler. This is metaphysical, philosophical stuff. The ship of Theseus is basically the story that if you take a ship and the wood starts to rot and you start replacing the wood plank by plank and piece by piece, and then eventually have all new wood in that ship, is it still the same ship? That you may have heard a similar story Washington's axe or your grandfather's axe is a similar story where, because Washington's axe, if you replace the head and replace the handle, is it still Washington's axe? So,
speaking of ships,
my favorite philosopher actually was Comicus. So he coalesces the vapor of the human experience into a viable and logical comprehension. What movie is that from?
Did you just Google that?
No. What movie is that from?
I have no idea. Clearly,
I'm
I
a
have no idea.
stand-up philosopher. If History of the World
Seriously?
Part 1, anyway.
Wow.
Anyway, don't worry, Becky.
A room,
I am going...
Hey, a room filled with empty people. What movie?
What?
A room filled with empty people. What movie? Oh, it's so much fun to get you back on the other side.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Seriously?
The Sword in the Stone. 102 Dalmatians.
Murder by Death.
Oh, I love Murder by Death. God, I haven't seen that in ages.
It's funny. I
It's
just
not
watched
Clue,
it.
but it wants to be. Anyway, listen,
Wait a
I
minute.
promise you, I promise you that
another
these
argument.
listener email questions will be easier for you than these philosophical. At least I hope that they will be.
You should throw me the things that I know really intimately now, like when is DCL going to sail, or are vaccines going to be required for a cruise? Anything that I've had to deal with now for the past couple of weeks, or I don't know, a year, would be great.
Well, if you listener have questions, we will have the answer. So if you have a question you'd like us to answer on an upcoming show, you can just email me, lou@wdwradio.com. And Becky always asks me to send her questions in advance, which I don't do. A few months ago, I said, we didn't have time to prepare ahead of time. I says, Becky, I'm just going to open up the inbox. We're just going to sort of wing it. And I sort of loved it because I felt it was the most incredibly fully authentic and transparent and fun kind of way to do it. So I'm going to hit you, Becky, right out of the gate with the very first question. What would a room made out of mirrors look like if there was nothing inside the room to create as long as we're talking about paradoxical questions, I figured we would kick it off with something just like that.
Mephisto. My name, it's Mephisto. It's absolutely positively Mephisto, FYI.
All right, let's instead get to a question from Jay Stubblefield, who says, "Hey Lou, hope you've been taking care of yourself in these crazy times and won't mind me asking an off-the-wall question," which is exactly why I picked this one out, Jay. My mom passed away a couple of weeks ago. I am so very sorry. Yeah. And I found old photos of a family trip to Walt Disney World in about 1974. That's me in the classic plaid shorts. I noticed there's no Tinkerbell flying wire yet coming out of Cinderella Castle. I tried to Google when it was added, but no luck. Do you know? I figured if anybody does, it would be you. Thanks for all you do. My daughter and I still remember how gracious you were when we got to meet you in Magic Kingdom. Jay, I have this very puzzled look on my face, and you're saying flying wire? And I have no... Wait, Jay is talking about the wire that you may see in Magic Kingdom that connects from one of the spires on Cinderella Castle down to a rooftop in Tomorrowland. That is not a flying wire. That is Cinderella's cable TV hookup.
Right. I always wondered what that was.
Right. Sometimes she hangs her clothes out there, but normally it's just because obviously Tinkerbell clearly flies from the castle out to Tomorrowland the same way that Dumbo really flies out in Disneyland. But to answer your question, I don't think Tinkerbell, quote unquote, got cable until somewhere in the 80s or so here in Walt Disney World. Now, she actually flew over Disneyland's Sleeping Beauty Castle in California, I think 1960, 61, somewhere around there was the first time. She didn't start flying here until about 1985. Just took a little while to get out here. And originally, it wasn't meant to be something that Tinkerbell did every night. It was meant to be something that was special for the holidays. It was sort of like the special holiday Tinkerbell appearance. But because it was met with such an overwhelming response, they decided to make it a permanent fixture of the show every night. I think it was during Wishes was when it first started. But yeah, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain or the wire on the castle, because that is her cable TV.
Okay. That's a hard one to follow up on because, clearly there's backstory there that I'm not going to touch with a 10-foot wire. And I had no idea when that started. So,
all right, let me dodge this bullet and move on to
good call. Good call.
Move on to Brian Ford's question. And he starts off, and the reason why I'm picking this, and I don't know where it's going, but Brian's subject line says, "This could have saved the great movie ride."
Ooh.
It says, "Lou, I just found the podcast. I'm equal parts thrilled to have something awesome to listen to. Thank you. And devastated that it took me this long to find it. I love everything so far. Thank you. And I've had a recurring thought recently and would love to hear your thoughts. We know that the closure of the great movie ride was caused at least in part due to Disney wanting to get rid of things that have IP in it that they don't own, which stinks, but was understandable. The ball was rolling on its closure well before Disney was planning to buy 21st Century Fox. So my question to you is, do you think if the timing was different and Fox would have been acquired prior to the closure of the great movie ride, we would have simply seen a rebranding of it, maybe keeping a few of the classic MGM IP, but having the majority still being Disney, Marvel, Star Wars with some 20th Century Fox, which also has obviously a substantial movie library. Would love to hear your thoughts and keep up the awesome work on the show. P.S. As we're mentioning non-Disney IP in Hollywood studios, if we ever lose the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, I will riot." So this was actually it's an interesting question as we look back on history with the great movie ride itself, and then how, if in any way, the acquisition of 20th Century Fox did or potentially would have changed, which I think is an interesting way to look at this, Bill, is would this have changed any decisions possibly to close the great movie ride? And my initial thought, Becky, is no. I don't necessarily think that had Disney acquired, because I don't think it was from a lack of IP to draw from that is what predicated the closure of great movie ride. And not to go way off tangent, because I think this could almost be an entire show or discussion, but great movie ride was not just the icon of the park when it opened, but really, and I think sometimes people forget this, it also introduced some of those initial shifts in a more engaging and immersive type experience. The blending of live actors into the attraction itself, different than something like a Jungle Cruise. Really, it was sort of the predecessor of something like, a Rise of the Resistance, right? Where there was a live human element component of it. But I think this had less to do with properties to draw inspiration from, as opposed to not just the fact that the attraction itself was getting dated and starting to show it, I think, but needed to be updated in a way other than just swapping out movie scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. For years, we'd actually been hearing a lot of rumors that they were going to update this scene or that scene, or go in and bring movies into that ride or into that experience that people could better associate with or better recognize, because clearly there's movies in there that today's generation were like, what's that? And for me, just getting rid of the alien out of the ceiling, if they would have just done that, that would have improved it like 20 times. But if you think of the difference in animatronics right now from the Ripley, that you go past her and it was just horrible in comparison to what technology does now, they would have had to have done something. They would have had to bring down the entire thing and come up with new scenes from movies that were more relatable to the current generations, or do what they ended up doing, which was bring it back to Mickey and Minnie, which again, I love the fact that they did that, because Mickey never had his own ride. So, and sad side note, that was the last time that I was in Walt Disney World in the park, was for that press event that happened just about a year ago right now.
Yeah, and I think once you start trying to swap out scenes in an attraction like that, you are almost painting yourself into a corner of having to try and keep an attraction relevant and interesting for an ever-changing audience and different age ranges. Look, that's why Carousel of Progress is sort of locked very much where it is. I wouldn't call it timeless. It's sort of classic, and it is what it is, because if you start trying to update that final scene, that carousel is going to be closed all the time, because what's new technology or futuristic technology today is going to be eclipsed by the time the attraction is done.
Yeah,
and
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know how you feel, but the last couple of times I was on it and the kids are sitting behind me going, "Who's the guy in the horse, mommy?" It's like, wait, what? How old am I now? There was definitely a problem.
I'm going to hope that was a rhetorical question, because I refuse to answer. But I think to sort of answer that question and come full circle, I think part of the reason why was not necessarily because of the movie scenes that were being depicted or an inability to figure out. I mean, because look, I think there's the question, what scenes do you put in there, right? Now you have this even grander library, and obviously we can't use Marvel and Star Wars is represented elsewhere in the park. But how do you start picking scenes from what movie? What makes the list and what doesn't? But I think it really represents more of this overarching shift in Disney's Hollywood studios as a whole, because the park has been, I don't want to say intentionally or unintentionally, but the studio part of Disney's Hollywood studios has been starting to fall away, because it's not about it being this real working studio anymore. Galaxy's Edge is a place. It is a planet. It is a destination that you go to. The lines of what was on stage and backstage have been blurred, or in many cases even been erased, right? So if you used to go to Backlot Express, there used to be a guard shack there, and there you can still see the different colors of the pavement representing what was on stage and what was backstage. And because the park is no longer a working studio, nothing is being filmed there. There's no television shows that are going on there. The park is not contributing to animated projects anymore the way that it used to be. I mean, look, even, Magic at Disney Animation closed back in 2015, I believe. But if you look at the park now, and look back at maps from 1989, 1990, 1994, even as some of the expansion was going on, all of the aspects that represented the original studio theme, right? Backlot Tour, Lights, Motors, Action, the Extreme Stunt Show, all of these things that celebrated, the Hollywood that never was and always will be, to quote Michael Eisner, have started to be slowly eliminated. And do you remember, Becky Mankin, when Disney announced at D23 Expo that a new name for the studios was coming?
And we
I hope you haven't been holding your breath, because
and I was going to say that because the name doesn't do it justice of what it's becoming or what it is today. So why haven't we seen that name change, do you think?
Right, because we are not celebrating old Hollywood except in certain sections. We're not celebrating movie making as a whole. Again, Galaxy's Edge is not a Star Wars theme park. It is a separate planet that has nothing to do with movie making and props and sets. That is a real working place. Same thing with, even some of the areas just outside by where Muppet Vision is and Grand Avenue is. There's nothing that's sort of telling you, other than maybe the facades in places like the Sci-Fi Dine-In Theater, that this has that studio theme. And I'm wondering, what are Disney's plans 3, 5, 10 years down the road to sort of maybe continue down this trajectory? And if so, what does that name become? And maybe this is a question for you, Becky, and you, our friend who's sitting with us. The Disney's Hollywood Studios name was announced, it's got to be 5 years ago or so. I don't remember what expo it was. What would you change the name to, and why? Right? What would you change the name of Disney's Hollywood Studios to, and why? And I'll post this in the Clubhouse. Go to wdwradio.com/clubhouse. You can post your answer there, or you can even call the voicemail at 407-900-9391. Make your argument, state your case. Let me hear the passion in your voice, and we'll see how right you might be if and when the name does change.
Again, after WandaVision, I'm not making any predictions at this point. But then again, you have Galaxy's Edge that's sitting there, but you also have Toy Story Land too, which takes it into a whole nother realm. So it's almost like a park that doesn't right now have a thread that really takes it in any one direction. So maybe not right now.
I think it's more of the immersive storytelling, that you are not peeking behind the curtain to see how movies are made. You are now being picked up and dropped right into the
story.
You are in Andy's backyard. You are a visitor to Batu. You are inside this creepy old haunted hotel. And I think that is going to continue to be the evolution. You are riding with Mickey and Minnie and Goofy through this animated adventure. You're not figuring out how it's done. So I think that is that sort of shifting in the perspective as a guest of what we are seeing and what we are doing. And I think what guests' expectations are. We no longer want, I believe, not to speak for the populace of the earth, but we no longer necessarily want just passive experiences. We want things where we are not just watching a story, but we want to help craft and shape the story for ourselves.
Yeah, that takes you down that whole path of, like we keep mentioning, the walkthrough experience for Marvel in China that we went through, or that I can't get out of my mind. That still is.
Every time we talk about that because it was so good.
Somebody asked me the other day, I was being interviewed by somebody, and they said, what is the number one attraction you've ever been on? And that was the one I actually kept coming back to. And it was a temporary one at that. But once we get rid of this whole Marvel thing, I guess they are kind of pointing to that. If you're looking at Adventure Campus, it's the same thing. You're walking into it, or Cars Land, you're walking into that story. So it would be cool if Hollywood Studios does become the land of walking into a story or walking into the movie. That's incredibly cool.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that not just in that park, but we're seeing it elsewhere as well, with attractions that are even recently opened and ones that are being built. We want to be look, and I think Tron is a great example. We want to be the guy riding the light cycle, and that's exactly what you're going to do.
Yeah, and how about, I don't know, it'd be great if any Imagineers are listening. It'd be cool if you could have the walk on to the Date with Thor attraction. That would be
you got to stop making it weird. You know what? You were heading down a good path, and then I'm going to move on to a question from Michael. But I do want to hear people's thoughts about the name for Disney's Hollywood, a potential future name for Disney's Hollywood Studios. But Michael Johnson has a question and says, so we're having a debate on the Spaceship Earth narrators. I know Dame Judi Dench, Jeremy Irons, who he says is the best, and classic Walter Cronkite, but who else? I was thinking there were only 4, and I thought Vic Perrin was the 4th, but I've seen some places that it's Lawrence Dobkins. You know a lot about Disney, do I? And can you answer the riddle? I can, with an asterisk, and I'm going to help walk you through this. So, quick little bit of Disney history. Obviously, Spaceship Earth opens in 1982. It was sponsored by Bell Systems, which became AT&T, and then it was Siemens. And then there was changes in sponsorships here and there. But over time, there have been, you were right, there were 4 different narrators. Larry Dobkin was from 82 to 86. Cronkite was until 94. Jeremy Irons was 94 to 2007. And Dame Judi Dench is the current narrators. Now, until recently, and you mentioned the name Vic Perrin, until recently, it was pretty widely, and I think, I don't want to say universally accepted, because there's always been debate, that Vic Perrin was the original narrator of the ride. And the problem is that there's not a lot of audio or video, at least available to us, of the original narrator and being able to tell exactly who it was. So Vic Perrin was a radio host, and he was a film and TV actor. The only thing else that you might know Vic Perrin for was in The Outer Limits. He was the control voice, and I know I'm dating myself because Outer Limits was like from the 60, like 62 to 65, somewhere around there. But he was also, so Vic Perrin was also in, because here's going to be the common thread. He was also in Star Trek. He was in a number of different Star Trek episodes. And the one that I recognize him most for was in The Changeling. He was the voice of Nomad, that silver space probe, which looks a little bit like an IG-88 without arms or legs. So Vic Perrin was the voice of Nomad. However, back in 2008, former head of Imagineering, the late Marty Sklar, changed that acceptance that Vic Perrin was the narrator in an interview that he gave, where he said that, I don't know where, he said basically, I don't understand why people keep crediting Vic Perrin to the role, because the voice actor who did it was Larry Dobkin. And I know this for a fact because the interview that he did that on was with me back on show number 35.
Wow.
Like, literally 600 episodes ago.
That's Hot Tub Time Machine stuff right there.
So yeah, as part of Epcot's 25th, and Larry Dobkin, same thing, was a radio and TV performer going way, way back to like the golden age of radio. He also was in Star Trek. If you remember Charlie X, he was also in Next Generation and a couple episodes there. So even though, so Marty said that there, I believe he said it in his One Little Spark book or another book or at a D23 Expo afterwards as well. But still there seems to be this ongoing discussion and debate. Like, is it Perrin? Is it Dobkin? Look, Marty says Dobkin.
You're going to go with Marty.
I'm going to stick with Marty as my source. You know, it's not one of those, I'm not like the meme of the guy sitting at the table with the sign, I'm saying Dobkin, fight me on it. I have no skin in the game one way or the other. I would love the question to be answered definitively, you know, which I think it has been. I mean, if Marty says that's what it is, that's what I'm going to go with, barring evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, I have no skin in that game, so I'm just going to go, Marty's always right. That's going to be, but let me ask you a question though. If you had a choice of who another narrator would be, who would you want to take that role?
So you've got obvious choices. You've got Morgan Freeman.
That's my list.
Christopher Walken. Like, how good would Christopher Walken be? Like, narrating Spaceship? And I really, really, really want to do my bad Christopher Walken.
Oh, please do.
I can't, and I
will. Oh, no, please, because it'll go viral. This will make this show go viral. It's like, this is the one where he actually did it.
Gosh, when I
or sing something.
No, I'm going to sing as Christopher Walken. You know, I think this is another one of those difficult things, Becky, because no matter sometimes who you choose, unless it's Morgan Freeman, some people are going to love it, and some people are going to go, well, why didn't you choose X? Why didn't you choose...
James Earl Jones is up there. Patrick Stewart would be...
I thought Patrick Stewart,
amazing.
But I'm like... You know, it's...
Well, you were saying Star Trek, so I had to go there for a moment.
And I love Patrick Stewart. And so Patrick Stewart was in my mind as well, too. But I said, oh, maybe we want to sort of get, you know, I was like, oh, maybe we'll go to an American voice actor. Maybe we want to have somebody, or even with a different, you know, from a different background with one of those incredibly recognizable voices. There are so many perfect choices, and there are no perfect choices in terms of who do you choose. This might be another question. I'll post this one in the clubhouse too.
There you go.
Who would you select as the next narrator for Spaceship Earth? Because we know Spaceship Earth is getting a refurb. It was pushed back because of COVID and everything else that's going on. We don't know exactly the timing of when that's going to happen, but let's assume, for argument's sake, just because I don't like the Phoenician line, that we get a new script and we get a new narrator, who would you choose? And if you call the voicemail and do an impression of that person, I will even be more impressed. Maybe I'll even send you a prize.
See, now look, the Patrick Stewart line, though, can come because now X-Men are coming into the family fold. So that does make sense.
I know, but we still, like, he can't do it as Professor X because we still got that whole weird licensing nonsense going on.
Well,
but there's a ton of amazing voice actors that could do it.
The Mandalorian would be good. Angelina Jolie is coming up too. So, she's going to be a possibility.
You mean because of the Marvel connection?
Yeah.
Well, then let's just make it Selma Hayek and be done with it then.
I was waiting for that. Yes. You took it, you ran with it, and now you're blushing. That's awesome.
Christina Catch says, good morning from Boston. We spent time wandering in the Google. Why spend time wandering in the Google when you can go straight to the guy that knows best? Or me, I'll be fine. I'll be visiting Savi's workshop in Walt Disney World to build my own and my first lightsaber. I'm sincerely hoping for a yellow Kyber crystal, as it is my favorite color and would be my perfect lightsaber look. I've heard that they exist. Do you know if yellow Kyber crystals are in fact available at Galaxy's Edge? If so, are they available at Savi's during the build or at Doc Andros to buy separately? Thank you. Take care. All the best, Christina, and may the Schwartz be with you. So, yes, yellow Kyber crystals are available. And for those of you who are wondering what sort of weird foreign language we're speaking about, yeah, Kyber crystals in the Star Wars universe are these crystals that basically give lightsabers their powers. In the Galaxy's Edge universe, they are a small crystal-shaped piece of plastic that is equipped with RFID technology, and they come in a variety of different colors: red, blue, green, purple, white, black, and yellow. I know because my son went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, making me go get him a yellow one. The black one is rare. You can't sort of just walk in and buy the black one. The black one is sort of the mystery chaser one that will sometimes come in the red Kyber crystal shell, because you actually can't see the crystal. It's in this little, very cool little case that it comes with. So you can build your lightsaber in Savi's workshop, and you have a choice of red, blue, green, or purple, but you can replace the crystal with a yellow one that you buy at Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquity, and you can put it either in your lightsaber or in one of the Jedi or Sith holocrons that you can also purchase at Doc's as well. And Becky, I'm going to beat you to the punch because I know where you're going. Becky and I first visited Galaxy's Edge, Batu, Black Spire Outpost in Disneyland when it opened. Becky wanted to build a lightsaber at Savi's workshop. I told you I wanted to wait to do it with my son, but Becky, being Becky, wanted to. So she made me build a red one, and she's so thrilled seeing, see, you're evil. You built the red one. You're a Sith.
He built the red one. He's a Sith. He should have seen the joy on his face when he built the Sith the Sith lightsaber, and you almost tried to kill me with it. I remember it took over your soul
because you made me build a Sith lightsaber. Exactly.
That is a story that I love it when you tell it, because the way you tell it is certainly not true. So eventually I get to tell the real true story.
Oh, listen, I did cry when I took my son to build it in Walt Disney World, and he and I went in, and I even to this day get choked up as I think about it, because I was there for no other reason to watch him, and the unadulterated joy on his face, and the kid was just enthralled and totally bought into the experience. Mm-hmm. And he was 14 at the time. That alone was worth the $200 price tag. And Becky, we both said this from the very beginning. You are not buying a lightsaber.
No.
You're buying you are getting that as your takeaway token, and it is yours, and it is customized, and it has got heft and weight to it, and the blade and the sheath and all these things and the noise and the Kyber, but you are paying for that experiences. And if you are able to do so, financially and otherwise, and I understand that it is a pricey experience, but if you are able to do it, and if you are a Star Wars fan or a parent or want to gift this as something to somebody that you love or care about, it is one of the best experiences I have ever had just watching in Walt Disney World.
Oh my gosh. I remember when that was an option for us, and I looked at it and I went, do I really need a $200 lightsaber? Really? Am I really going to spend that kind of money on this thing?
And you said, yes, as a matter of fact, I need two of them.
Again, because I wanted to make sure that you had the experience. You could build the steel saber all on your own. So because I knew you wouldn't do it on your own. I knew
you literally
would
whispered to my ear like, "Listen, Lou, I need two of them. I need you to come in here with me."
I had to make sure that you had a good excuse to go ahead and take advantage of the situation. Otherwise, you'd be, no. I'll just stand over here in the corner.
That's what I was going to do.
Star Wars freak is going to just stand. Exactly. Which
Nicholas,
I couldn't let you do that.
You.
Couldn't let, oh, geez.
Becky made me do it. I'm going to get a shirt. I'm going to put on T Public a shirt that says Becky made me do it.
Oh my God.
Because I could wear that a lot of places.
Yeah, that's like the 404 error on your website that still comes up that says that it was my fault. Yeah, I do run into those every once in a while still. My fault. But I was really happy that you finally stepped up and accepted your role as a Sith as you put it together, and you were happy and you were smiling. And then we walked outside and I looked at my lightsaber. I'm thinking, okay, while I didn't need a $200 lightsaber, I needed that experience. It was amazing to put it together and to create this thing. And immediately, all of a sudden, I had a lightsaber across my neck. And apparently, it took over your soul for a moment, and then it let you go after a little while. But it was such a wonderful experience. And like you said, if you can afford it, if it's something that you want to do as a fan, I highly encourage people to take advantage of the opportunity.
Treat yourself, gift it to somebody else, and you can. So and I believe it still is the case. If one person can participate in the experience, but one person can go along with them. So if you do want to watch, I highly suggest that you videotape it, just because not to publish it, because I think there are some surprises that should stay surprises, but so that you have that shared memory recorded,
right?
Is wonderful. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Anthony Mazzella says, "Hey, Lou, hope you are doing well. On an episode I listened to recently, you mentioned that you were aware of a location at the Contemporary where there's a photo of Walt walking when everything was still just dirt. So I'm curious to know where that location is relative to what has been built today. Thank you." So Anthony, I now understand what you're asking. So there's no photo at this location, but there is a famous photo of Walt Disney and some of the Imagineers and engineers walking the property that would eventually become Walt Disney World back in the mid 60s, obviously before Walt passed, because obviously, the park had opened so much later. But Walt, we talk about Disneyland being where Walt walked, and there are some places in Walt Disney World. Obviously, Walt did land here and did walk a lot of the property, even later on, as before he passed. And there is a photo of Walt in this, what Central Florida basically is this, murky, mushy sort of,
swampy
swampland, right area with this lake off in the distance. And by putting photos together, it's been estimated that photo was taken where Disney's Contemporary Resort currently stands. And by taking that and other photos, I think we have figured out pretty much where that spot is. So if you want to stand where Walt walked and sort of match up sort of where that picture was, and obviously you can't sort of match it up exactly, but if you go out the back of Disney's Contemporary Resort and you look at the dock and there's the sandbar grill there, if you make a left and start walking, towards Bay Lake Tower, as close as you can to the lakeside, there is a concrete walking path there. There's even a couple of chairs. And at one point you walk upon, and there's a small section of beachfront where you can't actually access the beach, but there's a corner there with a fence. That, by my estimation, seems to be that corner where the concrete meets the beach is as close as I've been able to approximate to where that photo of Walt was taken. So I have stood there. In my little heart of hearts, I'm standing where Walt walked, or at least some close representation of it. So if you do want to sort of have that moment for yourself, that is where you can go.
Wow. I've seen the photo, but I didn't realize that people had figured out where it actually was. So that's kind of cool. It would be neat.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, it would be neat. It's like that really magical feeling, for lack of a better word, when you do get in Disneyland and if you're lucky enough to be up in the apartment and looking out the window where he stood and watch people in the park, or just walking through the castle and knowing that you're literally walking in his steps, knowing that there's the same type of opportunity in Walt Disney World. That's really cool.
I know that I am not alone when I say that the first time I stepped foot into Disneyland, I happened to be by myself. I was waiting for friends who had a later flight. And the first time I stepped on Main Street, there was a choke in my throat. And I'm sure I felt that single tear fall down the side of my face simply because of that fact. And I think you listening probably, hopefully understand, or at least I'm not laughing out loud at me, because I think a lot of us understand that. We understand the impact of the first time in the park and what this man meant, what this place represents beyond it being a quote unquote just a theme park. And that's why I had such an emotional reaction to it. And I think that's why Anthony wants to know where that spot is, because he wanted to have that same type of feeling here in Walt Disney World, not the same one. You could walk on Main Street in Disneyland and know Walt literally walked there. You can find pictures of Walt, hanging out on a garbage can, talking to kids, and recreate that exact same location, where it's obviously much more difficult here in Florida.
See, Walt ate on garbage cans too, just
Right.
like us. So it was actually perfect. And one of the reasons I'm sitting here giggling, and you're talking about this wonderful emotional thing, and I'm physically giggling, and I can't help it, is because I keep thinking of you and Walt's apartment. I'm not sure you want to tell that story.
I have no problem. Listen, I am not embarrassed or I am proud of this story to a certain degree. So
I'm lovingly looking out the window going, and Walt looked out this exact window to see people in his park. And what did Lou do?
listen, so let's just put it in context. So years ago, we were on an Adventures at WDW Radio group Adventures by Disney. I cannot wait for them to come back again soon. Stay tuned. We were on an Adventures by Disney, and one of the surprises at the time was that you were able to visit Walt's apartment in Disneyland. So it's one of those surprise and delight moments. Nobody knows that it's coming. And in small groups, you go up to Walt's apartment, which for all intents and purposes looks exactly the way it did back in the 60s. And you walk in and there's photos of Walt and Lillian, and there's the chair, and there's the cookie jar, and, you know, the little sandwich maker. And obviously you go right to the lit lamp in the window. Not this guy. I wanted to go where the real magic happened, because we all know that Walt probably didn't do his best thinking on that little couch in that room with Lillian and the kids running around. No, I walked right into the bathroom and I sat with the lid down where Walt sat.
Thank you for establishing that detail, because
I sat where Walt sat, and I was like, this is where the magic, this is where the real ideas came from. And now my understanding is that since that time, it has been roped off, and you can
clearly, I wonder why. It's most likely because that Mongello character went in there and had to sit on the toilet.
It was not off limits. I didn't do anything I wasn't supposed to do,
Right.
but I
Exactly.
did. I wanted to sort of see, look, I did. I wanted to, I wasn't a joke. I wanted to sort of be where Walt really was. Like, I wanted to see not just the quote unquote onstage area where he met with friends and you know, sat and had coffee and chili and sandwiches and things. I wanted to see where Walt lived. I wanted to get the sense of where Walt lived, and seeing that bathroom that was so locked in time and still remains that way, locked in time, was really neat to see. So I went there for inspiration.
And now we've come full circle on all the ways that you can, you know, walk in Walt's footsteps.
All right. So, Becky, I'm picking this next one out because I see you addressed specifically in the very first words. It says, "Hi, Lou and Becky." And this comes, and also there's another word.
No question mark? There was no question mark?
No question mark. But there's
I'm starting to...
a word in the title that I'm like, well, this is clearly in Becky's wheelhouse, because this is from Christina Heaton, and it says, "Hey, Lou and Becky."
Be nice.
And the title says, "Dark Kingdom, Myth
Wow.
or Truth?" And I just want to know where Christina's going with this.
Okay.
Christina says, hey, Lou and Becky. I'm a longtime Disney fan and longtime fan of the show. You're a friend, not a fan. I love the listener email shows, but this is my first time writing in with a question. My question today is this. I recently read online that Disney was considering a park called Dark Kingdom that was going to be villain-centered and would have had Maleficent's castle. Is this true, or is it urban legend? And if it's true, it's twoo. How close did it actually come to happening? Please, Lou and Becky, I'd love if you could shed some light on this topic. This is super cool, and I know, and I will link in the show notes, I don't remember the exact number, but years ago, I did a show about, I think it was like myths and legends or on some unrealized Disney concepts, and we talk about this a little bit, but this whole, specifically, Dark Kingdom. So first of all, Becky, did you ever hear of Dark Kingdom? Have you ever heard of this? I have
heard of it, and I've heard both the myth and the legend and some of the realisms, but I would love to be educated because it sounds like a place that I would love.
And exactly why I picked this question, not even knowing where it was going. I heard dark and twisty, and this was right. So I'll clear this up first. So the Dark Kingdom was something that was entirely made up by fans online that got legs many, many years ago. I mean, we're talking probably more than a decade ago that this really, especially on things like discussion forums and even like Usenet news groups, really started to sort of pick up steam as becoming truth. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context first, because I think this is where this started to come from. Because in Tokyo Disneyland, there used to be a walkthrough experience called the Cinderella Castle, the Cinderella Castle Mystery Tour that ran from like the mid 80s to the early 2000s. And it had the Black Cauldron, which like you never see anywhere in Disney. Like that's usually that's the movie that they don't talk about, but Black Cauldron and the Horn King and all that kind of stuff in there. And you took this walking tour through Cinderella's castle, and there was like this mystery tour that was more on the scary spirit side. It made me think of what we saw over in Hong Kong.
Pinocchio.
Well, there was a Pinocchio. There was a Pinocchio thing where his face turned into, it wasn't as scary, but like his face turned into Stromboli. There was an evil queen, like laboratory or something, and Chernobog. So this was a very heavily villains focused Night on Bald Mountain type of epic thing. And again, for some reason, I guess maybe Black Cauldron is a little bit more beloved than it is here. And I think that started to spark rumors of this love and desire for something villains centric in the Disney theme parks. And there were a number of different iterations of what this rumored attraction, land, or even theme park, like this was supposedly going to be at the time the fourth and then eventually the fifth gate. There was a rumor, and I know we talked about this on an earlier show. We talked about the rumors of this Bald Mountain or Fire Mountain or Villains Mountain that was going to be built first in Magic Kingdom. And when we talk about where in Fantasyland this would have been, and this basically would have been sort of where New Fantasyland is now. It would have been this gateway that you would go through from behind Cinderella Castle into this area, sort of past where the Ariel's grotto meet and greet. And at first it was going to be a single attraction, and then there was rumors of a water flume ride, and then they were like, well, as long as we've got this, why don't we just make an entire land built around villains? And it was almost going to be something like, Becky, from Tokyo Disney Sea, the Mermaid Lagoon section, where you would almost sort of walk underground, and there would be this sort of, to use Beckyism, this dark and twisty sort of villains themed section. But this Villains Mountain was going to be this giant centerpiece, much like maybe, a Prometheus Mountain in Disney Sea would be. And this would have been modeled after Night on Bald Mountain. And there were rumors that this was something that, this plane was in flight, that originally started from something that was built online to this rumored fifth gate that was going to be primarily villains themes, which I never bought into because I think it's a big enough draw for a fifth gate, which again, from a financial perspective is exponentially greater than just adding on a land or adding on a single attraction. And I think maybe not everybody's into villains. There might be a fear of fear, for younger kids,
Right.
maybe wanting to have something that was villain centric. But the discussion of this Dark Kingdom, I think, came from this idea or this original concept for this villain's mountain that, just as the internet is wont to do, gets a life of their own. Look, to use your WandaVision thing, we all were convinced what WandaVision was going to look like at the end, and it was nothing other than the fun that we had trying to put
Creating
together
our own
theories.
story. Yeah.
We absolutely did.
Wow. And that has so much potential, though. I mean, as you're talking about it, I'm whipping it up in my head of what it would look like, and starting to think about Tokyo Disney Sea with the volcano. I mean, you've got that piece in there, and it really would be cool to have something of that nature that was dark and twisty, and the villains pieces, because just look how popular Halloween is during that time, and all of the dark, scary-ish things that kind of come out of the woodwork, especially if you're looking at not so much Disney World, but over in Disneyland, where they definitely take Halloween a little bit more to the dark and twisty side than you do see over in Walt Disney World, where it's not so scary. I think there's clearly an appetite for it, and people would believe that it was actually going to occur, because people are whipping themselves in a frenzy and coming up with great ideas, and how cool it would be to walk through that experience. It'd be great.
Yeah, it's and this is something that comes up again every few years as sort of the next big rumor, whether it's the fifth gate here in Walt Disney World, an expansion to different parts of different parks, what might be elements of, there's been also rumors over the last couple of years of elements of Beastly Kingdom and some of the attractions that were very much fleshed out there being rethemed to something villains and then being incorporated somewhere else into one of the other parks. What you start to run into now is space being an issue,
Right.
In terms of where and how can you possibly expand certain parks or certain lands outward to give them some additional space. I know that there's some room behind Pandora for another attraction that I think is going to be a water-themed Pandora attraction. Obviously, nothing villains themed would fit into Animal Kingdom. I think you're really locked into Magic Kingdom or Disney's Hollywood Studios. And is there enough room currently behind New Fantasyland? Probably not to build something of that scale. But I think this begs an interesting question is, if there was, what do you think of the idea of a villains themed attraction, a villains themed land, or even a villains themed park? What would that interest you? And if so, on what level of those three scales would you like to see?
Well, if you look at the amount of people who really, really, really want Mr. Toad back, and you're going to hell in Mr. Toad, you're talking about, earlier we were discussing places that you would walk into to be part of that experience in Hollywood Studios, having some sort of more dark villains realm would be actually really cool to experience.
Well, and it just made me think, judging by the popularity, and I went a couple of times pre-COVID, obviously, for I forgot about the Disney Villains After Hours in Magic
right.
Kingdom, which was nothing, and it's not to take away from when I say it, when it's nothing more than, it was this after hours party themed after Disney villains, which had a much more edgier feel, almost a little bit more of an adult-ish feel for it. That it was sort of calm down, meaning almost geared more towards older kids, teenagers, and adults. There was almost like a nightclub vibe to it around Magic Kingdom, but the lighting, the characters that were there, the theming that was there was maybe the first dipping of the toe into the waters to see if there was any interest in that. It was a very popular party that I hope that they bring back, and I think that they will bring back in a post-COVID type of world. But I want to know, and I think this is a very interesting question, and a very informal survey in terms of interest in a villain-themed attraction, land, or even a fifth gate, and play a little armchair Imagineer. Have some fun with it. Share an idea that you have for what you think it might be. Again, it's a great thing to call the voicemail on 407-900-9391. You can share your idea there of what you would like to see for a villains-themed attraction, land, or even park. And maybe we'll chat about this on this week's Wednesday night live show. We'll talk about the idea of a villains theme. So come on to the live show Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern at WDW Radio Live. It's on Facebook. Grab a snack, sit back, relax, and be part of the conversation and community. And I think that's a great way to wrap up this week's episode of the inbox. Obviously, we have a lot more to get through, but these are always fun, and I love sort of being able to have fun with playing, flexing our creative muscles, as it were, while also helping people plan their next Walt Disney World vacation. Because as I keep saying, and I believe this, that now is the time, now is the best time to come. It still is the safest, happiest, most magical place that I have been since all of this started. And if and when you are ready to come, or if you have questions about coming, you can reach out to Becky and her team, who will help you do just that.
Yeah. And one thing I will tell you really quickly is if you're planning on going to Walt Disney World, especially come September, October, November, and anytime in 2022, don't think that you shouldn't be booking it now, because it's really amazing. You might hear a lot of people talking about pent-up demand for travel because so many of us have been locked in quarantine and haven't been able to leave. Like, I don't know, me. A lot of people are looking forward to traveling and catching up on those lost trips. So we're seeing prices go up because of lower availability, because people are booking stuff farther and farther in advance. And as a matter of fact, even the cruise lines are now, not Disney yet, but other cruise lines are opening up itineraries right now for 2023.
Wow. Because
people are booking so much in advance. If you are even thinking about being at Walt Disney World for the second part, again, September through the end of the year in 2021, you need to be thinking about that now, because the hotels are already booking up, and prices, availability, and park reservations are getting a little bit more harder to get your hands on. They're still open now, but I can just see if you're thinking that you can wait till a month out or so, you may not want to wait that long. So we're here to help you. We can obviously do Disney World and Disney Cruise Line is booking to 2022. We can also shortly, we should have more Adventures by Disney. And Lou, you and I have a lot to talk about in getting our groups back up and running. We are closer now to traveling again than we've been in the past year. And I have a lot of exciting ideas and things to move forward. And as always, I'm always available on Facebook Messenger if you have any questions. I love, love, love answering people's questions. So if you, and that's why I need to do more email shows, by the way, Lou, that would be awesome.
And I'm also happy, if you can't reach Becky on Messenger, I'm also happy to give you her home phone number or address if you would like that.
Certainly.
As well.
Come pop on in, because right now I would love to see a face that's not my husband's.
And you know what, Becky, you just made me think of something. Listen.
What?
We were talking about, planning upcoming trips and vacations. You want to watch Becky freak out? Watch this.
Oh,
so stay tuned this week, because we are going to share information about our upcoming WDW Radio Marvel Day at Sea cruise.
We might
in 2022. Listen, I cannot wait to get back on the ship.
I can't either.
You know, Becky, that and stop giving me the evil Chernobog look. We have been talking extensively behind the scenes about planning and making that happen with each other and with Disney, and we're going to have some details coming soon. So if you would love to join us and get back or get onto Disney Cruise Line again, stay tuned because we're going to have information about a Marvel Day at Sea cruise leaving out of Miami in early 2022.
So excited. It's time to get back to normal, and I need to travel. I need to be on the inside of a plane. I'm happy to stand in a TSA line for an hour. I'm good to go. I think I forgot how to pack.
Listen, I just want to get back on the cruise again.
I know, me too.
I cannot wait. And I've said in the past, the Marvel Day at Sea cruise, other than Alaska because of the destination, but the Marvel Day at Sea cruise has been my favorite cruise I have ever taken. And especially now with all the Marvel goodness that's happening on places like Disney Plus and coming it back into theaters, and all the extra special stuff that we do for people that cruise in our group. There's a lot to be excited for. So stay tuned. Information coming the more varies I say, the more worried Becky gets, but very, very, very soon.
I'm so excited for it. Seriously, I was like, yay! I can't wait to get back out in the water. I miss cruising so much. And imagine, this is a year after we had initially planned it and what they were doing for Marvel Day at Sea at that point. Imagine what they'll add to it now with all the new storylines.
We were supposed to go in January for our Marvel Day at Sea cruise. So we're going to be excited for it more than ever.
Exactly.
And Cabanas. And Thor's going to be there. So you got that going for you. And you made it weird.
Of course. But think about this. You know what I'm happy about right now? What makes me so incredibly excited?
Paulo?
For right now, besides Paulo and strawberry soup, just FYI. The fact that we just did a show that mentioned you almost doing an impression of Christopher Walken, Louis the Sith, Selma Hayek, and Walt's Bathroom, all in one show.
Good night, everybody.
It's like the greatest hits right there. How'd you know?
It's time for our Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, where I invite you to test your knowledge of Walt Disney World's history, or see whether you pay attention to the details, or maybe I'll even ask you to identify where in Disney you may have heard a song, sound, or quote. If you think you know the answer, you can enter via our online form for a chance to win a Disney prize package. This week's trivia contest is brought to you by Fun.com. If you visit www.radio.com/fun, you can save on toys, collectibles, clothing, home and office goods, and lots more. There's something for everybody and every age, from Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, Funko, you name it. Incredible selection, great customer service, quick and secure shipping as well. Whether you're looking for a gift for yourself, like me, or for somebody else, you can save 15% on your first order when you sign up for the newsletter just by visiting www.radio.com/fun. Before we get to this week's trivia question, we're going to go back, review last week's, and select our winner. So last week, I asked you to identify where in Walt Disney World you heard this phrase, "Hey, Mom, what if I just float away?" And then Mom replies, "Then your father will get you as soon as he manages to get your shoe." Now, if you're not sure exactly where you may have heard this from, maybe hearing the actual recording might help you.
Hey, Mom!
What is it, Tommy?
Look, Mom, I'm flying! Why don't you try it?
I don't know what I'm going to do with you. Don't let go of Napoleon. We don't want to lose him.
Hey, Mom, what if he just floats away?
He won't.
Hey, Mom, what if I just float away?
Then your father will get you as soon as he manages to get your shoe.
Did that help? Or did you already know that that is from the now extinct attraction Horizons? If you remember the gravity simulation room on the space station, there's the floating puppy scene, or the "Hey Mom" scene, as the dialogue exchanged between the boy who's floating around in space, obviously without his shoe, and Mom and the poor dog Napoleon. Anyway, I took all of the correct entries, randomly selected one, and last week you were playing for a prize package that includes my brand new Disney Interviews book, my 102 Ways to Save Money for an at Walt Disney World book, all 7 of my virtual audio walking tours, a WDW Radio new mug, and a brand new WDW Radio pin, which are very cool. You got to check these out. not available anywhere else, just like the mug, other than a prize package. So that's 10, count them, 10. I didn't even realize. You get 10 different prizes this week. And last week's winner, randomly selected, is Anne McClellan. So Anne, congratulations. You use the form. I will get your prize package out to you right away. If you played last week and didn't win, that's okay, because here's your next chance to enter in this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. So this week, I'm going to keep it short and sweet and simple for you, because all you need to do is tell me, on what attraction do you ride in an XP-37 ride vehicle? So there is, or was, an attraction in Walt Disney World in which your ride vehicle was known as is known as an XP-37. All you need to do is tell me what attraction that is. You have until Sunday, March 14th at 11:59 p.m. Again, to win the entire Disney prize package, all you need to do is go to WDW Radio.com, click on this week's podcast, use the form there. So good luck and have fun. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for spending and sharing your time with me. Don't forget that if you have a question you'd like me to answer on the show, you can just email me, lou@wdwradio.com. And please make sure to weigh in on our great movie ride and villains questions in the clubhouse that is our community on Facebook. Come be part of the family and the conversation by going to wdwradio.com/clubhouse. You can also connect with me on social. I am at Lou Mongello on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. Call the voicemail, be heard on the air at 407-900-9391. And don't forget to join me this and every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for WDW Radio Live. It's my live video broadcast on Facebook. Each week we'll talk about this week's podcast. I'll share my top 5 live, my Disney Plus pick of the week, as well as your questions, your comments, and anything you would like to talk about, including as we wrap up WandaVision and start looking forward to things like Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney+. Again, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, WDW Radio Live. Be sure to like the WDW Radio page on Facebook, as well as join the clubhouse and turn on notifications everywhere so you don't miss a thing. Speaking of family, I'd like to thank all the new and longtime members of the WDW Radio Nation family. I sincerely appreciate your friendship and your love and your support of the show and your help. And I also love being able to give back to you each month with monthly scavenger hunts, care packages from Walt Disney World, t-shirts, backpacks, stickers, lots more. I want to thank some of the new and longtime member of the Nation family, including Hillary Parsons, Amanda from Pixie Dusted Days, Crystal Hudson, Julie Whitsitt, Holly Beamer, and Ann Fisher. If you'd like to find out how you can help to support the show for as little as $1 per month, you can visit www.radionation.com. Also, don't forget that a portion of your completely optional proceeds do go to our Dream Team project to benefit the Make-A-Wish Foundation of America. Now, you do so much to help me. I would like to return the favor and help you. So if there's any way that I can help you, either with one-on-one coaching, being part of our weekly mastermind group, we have one spot left, or coming to speak to your business, your conference, or your school, virtually or in person, you can visit loumongello.com. I would love to help you turn what you love into what you do, your dream into your reality, and help you sort of move the needle on whether it is your idea, your business, your blog, your podcast, your product, your service, whether it's online or brick and mortar. Again, visit loumongello.com. Thanks again to Becky from Mousefan Travel. Don't forget to get a free no obligation quote. You can visit mousefantravel.com. If you're looking for some WDW Radio logo gear, show your support for the show, as well as hundreds of designs of Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and pop culture shirts, you can visit www.radio.com/shirts. And finally, my friend, and you are my friend, whether we have met yet or not, and I hope soon we can meet in person if you haven't, all I ask is that if you like the show, please help spread the word. There's lots of different ways you can do it. One way is by just sharing a link to this or your favorite episode on social in your favorite Facebook group or Twitter or Pinterest. And if you can, take just a couple of seconds to please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. It's incredibly helpful. Takes just a couple of seconds. I want to thank some recent reviewers like Walt Disney Art Lover, who said the show is good, wholesome fun for all types of Disney fans. If you're needing your Walt Disney World fix, you've come to the right place. Such a fun variety of shows that are both informative and memorable. Who treat you like as one of his closest friends through every episode, and you feel like you're there chatting about Disney with him, because you are, and we are. Joni708 says, awesome show. Lou never fails to give us an informative and entertaining podcast. Always enjoy your special guests. And ya. I think I had enough ya's in there. That's the name. Says, perfect in every way. I love all the creative topics you come up with, Lou. You're truly a great person, and I wish you best of luck with this podcast and life in these crazy times. I'm a new listener. Welcome. And definitely won't quit listening. Bye for now. Thank you, Walt Disney art lover, Joni718, and ya. If you want to find out how to leave a review, just search for WDW Radio in Apple Podcasts or go to www.radio.com/iTunes with a link and instructions. Finally, most importantly, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I cannot tell you how much you mean to me and how much your sharing of time and your attention. I know it is so very limited, and the fact that we get to spend it together does not get lost on me. I am grateful every single day. If there's some way that I can repay you for that, please, by all means, let me know. I hope to see you this Wednesday night on the live show, and I hope that today and tomorrow and every day you choose the good. You have the power to find the good in everything that you do, in everyone that you encounter, and to pay that forward, right? To be the good and make positive choices and decisions, because I promise you, positivity is contagious. And we could all use a little or a lot of that right now. I love you and I appreciate you, and I hope that this really is your best week ever. So until next time, see ya.
Hello, it's Marciano. I sent you an email actually last week, but I was calling today because, well, I was listening to podcast number 593 specifically. First of all, I just wanted to thank you for everything that you've been doing. You've been a great podcast. I've grown to listen to quite a few of them in a relatively short amount of time. I just found it last month, and I swear I've already watched like 100 of them and counting. But, yeah, so I saw podcast number 593, and that being the one with the villains, first of all, I agree with you. Frollo is simply the best, most evil, not Turnabog character out of all of them. But when you spoke about Lady Tremaine, that resonated with me on very much of a deep level, because I'm a victim of child abuse myself, and I had a not so great first few years with my biological father, but watching that film, I guess, definitely stuck with me. And I'm glad that you highlighted what you did about exactly, what makes Lady Tremaine who she is. And that kind of led me to thinking about other things. There's another character that I know doesn't really get brought up a lot for pretty much anybody's top 10 Disney villains, but I think there's a little more to really look at and let it sink in than people say. It's another one of those terrifying because of how realistic they are kinds of characters, that being Sykes from Oliver and Company. Because he seems generic and bland by a lot of means for a lot of people. He's just kind of there and intimidating and stuff. He doesn't even get a song, which, a lot of the villains, not everyone, but a lot of them do get songs to at least give them something to stand out, if nothing else. But for me, it was always just combining his sheer size with his standing, this mob boss gangster type of guy. Fakin owes him money, and the simple fact of just how far he's willing to go to get his hands on Ginny's family fortune, to the point where he unquestionably puts this little girl's life on the line, holding her for ransom, and he's not even thinking twice about who he has to kill to get this family fortune. That they showed so much of that in that detail, I think, really speaks a lot in a way for the...
Hey, this is Bruce from Brooklyn. I just want to leave a comment about your solo dining podcast. That one time eating at Crystal Palace by myself, I went up to get more food. I came back to my table, and they cleared my table. They had to come back with more utensils, drinks, and everything like that. Just ever since then, when I go eat solo, I always leave my baseball cap on the table. So I just say, no, I'm still there and I'm still eating. Bye.
Hey, Lou, this is Beth from Brooklyn, New York. Just got back on Wednesday from a fabulous trip down to the world. Got to meet Lori and Darlene at Animal Kingdom, which was cool. And I got to see baby Grace, who's doing great, bopping her brother on the head and stuff. And, of course, little Ranger, who is too cute for words. But, yeah, it was a solo trip, so did lots of solo dining, as I usually do. I'm not one who does the communal stuff or the bar stuff. I'm a little too introverted for that. And it's actually my one thing that I don't like at Disney Cruise Line is that they don't have a way to guarantee you your own table, whereas, like, the lines that have My Time Dining, you can get your own table that way. It's just awkward. But when you're an introvert. But anyway, while I was there this time, I ate at La Hacienda de San Andel, which was amazing. I had Topolino's breakfast, which was great. Chef Mickey's breakfast was great. Skipper Canteen is always amazing. I'm gluten-free, and I don't eat seafood, so that kind of limits some choices. But at Skipper's, you can't beat the Taste Like Chicken because you can get it gluten-free, and which is amazing. I did not make it to Boathouse this time. I know, bad me. But that's definitely on my list for my birthday trip. One of my fun things that I had, one solo trip, I was eating at 1900 Park Fair for breakfast. And Tigger was there. One of the other Pooh characters was not there. So Tigger had taken his place. And I was sitting where I could see, like, kind of the little area where their door was, where they would go take their breaks and come back. And Tigger would keep poking his head out and playing with me, which was lots of fun. But yeah, looking forward to my birthday trip in July, where I am staying at, drumroll please, the Riviera. My theme for the trip was Becky and Jackie are always right. And yeah, when I went to Topolino's and walked around, or went to, Topolino's, I walked around Riviera. And I was like, yeah, I'm changing my resort to Riviera. So I'm going to stay in one of the Tower Studios, just me, so why not? But yeah, and maybe we can meet up, say hi, whatever, at some point when I'm there in July for my 50th. Talk to you later. Bye.
Hey, Lou. Saying hi again. It's Marlisa. I have listened to both your episodes of Illusions in the Magic Kingdom, and I want to go back. I know we just went to Disney about a week ago, and I want to go back again because I want to, like, look at all the different things that you talked about, and different illuminations and things like that. I am so excited. So thanks again for these episodes. They were wonderful. Have a good day. Bye.
Humans will put seeds in the ground, pour water on them, and they grow food like pizza,